I'm going to get into my DJI radio today because my yaw is just so loose I can barely control it. It's also kind of, what do you call that, trimming a little bit to one side. So with the directions I saw in the manual, very limited. DJI wants you to send the radio in. They don't want you doing this, but I don't have time for that. You know, chip shortage, COVID, all that stuff. So this is what I've learned. First thing you want to do, pop out the battery. You push this little button right here, and that should release the battery. Right, so we can close this door. I've already done some of this. So there's 6 screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 where this feet is. You gotta take that little rubber cover off the feet. And there were these little things, rubber nipples or whatever you want to call them. Nipples is fine with me. Go in there. There's 2 more. 1, 2, and then there's 2 more over here. You take those off. Now, when you start popping this apart, I use some of these cell phone pry tools. Then I ended up actually having to use a metal screwdriver because it is hard. It doesn't want to come apart, and I actually kind of dinked it up a little bit, but I didn't damage the radio function. That's the main thing. You start from the top because that's where the main retainer clip is. Once you pop that loose, it comes right apart. Then this little ribbon cable is plugged in down here. Okay, so the instructions tell you that in here is your radio adjustment, or your tension for your throttle here. And then it says left and right. I mean, it's very confusing. It's almost in kind of broken English. So I took it apart. When you look in this slot, there are 2 screws, and that's this screw and this screw. This screw, don't worry about. That will, if you tighten that up, it'll cause it to ratchet. Like if you were flying a plane and you wanted it to hold right there and not move on you. This one here, if you tighten it up, it'll increase the tension a little bit on the throttle. If you loosen it up, it will decrease the tension on the throttle. So they're both down here. Don't worry about that right one unless you want to have the ratcheting effect on your stick. Then this screw right here, and this was the one I was trying to figure out and I couldn't figure it out because you actually have to open this up, and it's confusing because I don't know if you can see it, but there are arrows. There's an arrow here and an arrow here. It says R2, this says R1. Well, I guess that means roll 1. Okay, roll 2. I don't know what the R's mean. But that's my yaw stick. It would be yaw in mode 2. I don't know. But it's going to be this one. It's going to be this one. If you tighten this screw up, you're going through this slot and down in here. If you tighten it up clockwise, it will increase the tension. Counterclockwise will decrease the tension on your yaw stick. So let me set this aside and show you what I mean. If I tighten up this screw, that is going to, see how I have this pretty tight? I got it right where I want it. If I loosen that up, this thing will just be sloppy. You won't even feel the spring in the middle. It'll be almost like your throttle stick. So just refer back to this video if you ever have a major problem and you can't get this adjusted. You can pop that off of there, tighten this one up. We'll tighten the tension on your yaw in mode 2 for you Europeans. you'd have to switch this whole mechanism over here, and there's another video for that, but I didn't make it. Let's talk about mode 2, not mode 1. This is the ratcheting screw. This is the only one you need to worry about as far as tightening up your throttle tension. And what the throttle does, great, I just dropped that. It kind of slides on this plastic piece here. And if you tighten this up a little, that just puts a little tension on that. I hope you can see that, because I don't feel like making this video again. But anyway, like I said, this is for my own future reference as much as anything else, because I have some drones that are set up for the DJI radio. I used the DJI radio a lot in the beginning. I'm just using the S-Bus. You know what? If it wasn't for the radio, the S-Bus is fine. To me, it's I'm used to it. It's got a pretty good range. Maybe not as good as Crossfire, but I'm not going that far out with these things. And you can get better antennas for the drone itself and get a little bit better range. But it's pretty good. And the main thing is the video signal. But anyway, I have the radio. I use it. I guess I got in there and messed around with it at one point when it was yawing too much to one side. And I still haven't tested this yet. I'm going to test it. Make sure. And the way I test it is on the simulator. I put it on the simulator, and that tells me if my sticks are centered or not. Now, if it's not centered, I don't really see an adjustment on how to actually get it to center. On my TX16, I can actually use the trim buttons and center it right there on the game. And I use Uncrashed. I use their, you know, it's not like some of these other radios where you can calibrate the sticks and stuff. I can't find out a way. If you know a way, put a link in the description here. So I'd love to be able to do that. There's no screen or anything to calibrate the sticks, and maybe there's a program on DJI has a program that I don't know about or something that you can hook up your radio and calibrate your stick somehow electronically or something. Or maybe I just need to reload the firmware. I don't know. I haven't done that in a long time. But anyway, my sticks were not working properly, and they were way too loose over here. So that's what I got. Don't worry about this one. This increases the tension on the throttle. This increases the tension on the yaw. They can be accessed through here, through this hole for your throttle. So this is the one you want to worry about. I don't know what the R means, but yeah, it's confusing. And then they have same thing for over on the it would be mode 1, I guess, for Europeans. Or I don't know if it's a European thing. I guess there's Americans who use that, and there's probably Europeans that use the other mode 2, but I don't know. But if you wanted to use it the opposite way, you'd have to switch this mechanism and some things over there, and then you'd do everything just the opposite. I guess you'd have to adjust all that in Betaflight or whatever firmware you use to fly your drone, as far as which one's throttle and yaw, and you know, just like you always do. So hopefully that's helpful. I know it'll probably be helpful to me. In 2 months, I'll forget everything I just learned today, because I'm old.